Okay, if you're a graduate student, you know the feeling. That little nagging sense that your messy, complex, and honestly brilliant research is being shoved into a structure that just doesn't feel right. Well, you're in the right place. Today, we're going to break down that rigid blueprint and figure out how to build a thesis structure that actually serves your work. Yeah, that feeling? It's not just in your head. For decades, there's been this one dominant thesis structure that's been treated like the gold standard. But what happens when your research, especially if you're in the social sciences, education, or the humanities, doesn't follow a nice, neat, linear path? Well, you end up trying to force a round peg into a square hole, and it's frustrating. So here's our roadmap. We're going to start by unpacking that conventional trap. Then we'll look at exactly when and why it fails. We'll give a name to the kind of research that breaks the mold. And then, this is the important part. We'll get into how you can design your own unique structure to tell the story your research truly deserves. All right, first things first, let's make sure we're all on the same page about the structure we're even talking about. It's the one you see in basically every research methods textbook and all over university guidelines. You know this one, right? The 6-chapter model. It's clear, it's logical, and for certain kinds of questions, it's incredibly effective. It was built to perfectly mirror the scientific research method. Define a problem, review what's already known, explain your methods, show your results, discuss them, and then wrap it all up. Simple. But here's the thing. Its very logic is tied to a specific worldview, one that sees the researcher's role in a very, very particular way. This quote from David Kember just nails it. This structure comes from what's called a positivist tradition. It's a philosophy where the researcher is supposed to be this detached, totally neutral observer, completely separate from the work. So the personal journey, the passion that made you spend years on this topic, it gets systematically erased in favor of this impersonal, third-person voice. But for so many of us, that journey is the research. So what happens when you take this blueprint, which was designed for controlled experiments and easily testable hypotheses, and you try to force it onto the messy, complicated reality of social science?
Well, the difference is pretty stark, isn't it? The scientific method assumes you're starting with a problem that's already well-defined. But in social science, the issues are often super ill-defined. Figuring out the problem is a huge part of the work. The researcher isn't some neutral observer. You're an active agent in the process, and the whole thing isn't linear at all. It's emergent, it's cyclical. This isn't just a small difference, it is a fundamental mismatch of purpose.
And you know what? This kind of mismatch actually has a name. The sorts of issues we often tackle in social and educational research, they're known as wicked problems. This term was first used by Riddle and Weber, and it perfectly describes problems where just defining them is a massive challenge in itself. Think about big things like educational inequality or youth mental health. There's no single definition, there's no clear finish line, and every single potential solution just seems to reveal new layers of complexity. The standard thesis structure just was not built to handle this stuff. Now, the most common victim of this whole mismatch is the literature review. The conventional model demands this huge, front-loaded Chapter 2. But really, how can you possibly map out the entire literary landscape when your research is exploratory by nature? You can't. You just end up with this massive, tedious chapter that might not even be all that relevant to where your research ultimately leads you. It's kind of like being forced to publish a detailed travel guide before you've even left your house. Okay, so if the old blueprint is broken, what's the alternative? The answer isn't just chaos. It's about intentional design. It's time to flip this whole model on its head. This right here is the crucial point. You are the architect of your thesis. The structure isn't some box you have to cram your work into. It's a tool that you create to best communicate your unique journey and your findings. That means choosing your thesis structure is a creative and an intellectual choice. And listen, this isn't some radical, out there idea. It's already happening. Just look at this table. These are real examples. A mixed method study might be structured around social cognitive career theory. An action research project could be built on something called critical place inquiry. The method, the paradigm, the theory you're using, they all point toward a unique and, more importantly, an appropriate structure for your work. So what about that big literature review problem? Well, the solution is actually pretty elegant. You just start with a shorter framing review to kind of situate your work. Then, you integrate the bulk of the literature throughout your findings chapters as you go. This creates this awesome dynamic conversation between your discoveries and the existing scholarship, showing your work in context as it unfolds naturally. All right, this brings us to our final and honestly the most empowering shift in thinking.
Your thesis is so much more than just a formal report of your findings. This is your entry ticket. Your thesis is your contribution to what's been called the grand conversation of your field. It's the story of your voyage of discovery, it's your unique perspective, it's your argument. And the structure you choose, that's the narrative framework for that story. It should highlight the traveler, that's you, and the unique path you took. So, let's bring this all home. Don't just be a passive follower of some outdated formula. Be the architect. Design a structure that actually fits your unique project. Be ready to explain and justify your choices. And above all, give your hard-earned research the compelling narrative it truly, truly deserves. So we're going to leave you with that question. Stop thinking about which structure is required of you and start asking yourself, what story does my research need to tell? Answering that question is the first step toward writing a thesis that isn't just rigorous, but is also authentic, compelling, and 100% your own.